experience, man.
This is how I came to love my vagina. It's embarrassing because it's not politically correct. I mean, I know how it should have happened in a bath with salt grains from the Dead Sea, and you playing, and me loving my woman's self. I know the story. Vaginas are beautiful. Our self-hatred is only the internalized repression and hatred of the patriarchal culture. It isn't real. Pussies unite. I know all of it. Like, if we'd grown up in a culture where we were taught that thighs are beautiful, we'd all be pounding down milkshakes and donuts, lying on our backs, spending our days thigh expanded. But we didn't grow up in a culture like that. I hated my thighs, and I hated my vagina even more. I thought it was incredibly ugly. I was one of those women who had looked at it, and from that moment on, I wished I hadn't. It made me sick. I hated anyone who had to go down there. In order to survive, I began to pretend there was something else between my legs. I began to imagine furniture. Cozy futons with light cotton comforters, little velvet settees, leopard rugs, pretty things, like silk handkerchiefs, or quilted pot holders. I got so accustomed to this that I lost all memory of even having a vagina. Whenever a man was inside of me, I pictured him inside of a mink-lined muffler. Or like in a Chinese bowl. And then I met Bob. Bob was just ordinary. He was tall and thin, nondescript, and he wore tan khaki clothes. He didn't like spicy foods. He didn't listen to music. He didn't even drive fast. In the summer, he spent his days in the shade. He didn't like sexy lingerie. He wasn't mean. He wasn't unavailable. He didn't have any problems. He wasn't self-involved. He wasn't even an alcoholic. You know, I didn't really particularly even like Bob. He wasn't funny or anything. He wasn't unfriendly or nothing. You know what? And I would have missed him altogether if he hadn't picked up my change that I dropped on the deli floor. When he handed me back my quarters and pennies, and his hand accidentally touched mine, something happened. I went to bed with him. That's when the miracle occurred. Turned out, Bob loved vaginas. He was a connoisseur. He loved the way they felt, the way they tasted, the way they smelled, and most importantly, he loved the way they looked. He had to look at them. The first time we had sex, he said, "I need to see you." I said, "Hello, Bob, I'm right here." He said, "No, I need to meet you. I need to see you." Well, I said, "Let's just do this. I'm right here." So he went over to turn the light on, and I'm thinking he's some weirdo freaking out in the dark. And he said, "Okay, I'm ready to see you." I'm like, "Well, you've seen a red leather couch before." So Bob began to undress me. This was awfully intimate. I wanted to throw up and die. And there's Bob staring at me the whole time. I looked at him as Bob looked at me. He said, "You're beautiful. You're innocent and wild." I said, "You saw all that there?" He said, "Yes, and I saw much more." It was like he was reading my palm, but it was my vagina. Bob's face began to change. He became like a hungry beast. He stayed looking for almost an hour as if he were studying a map or observing the moon or even gazing into my eyes. But it was my vagina. In the light, I watched him looking euphoric. I began to get wet and turned on. I started to understand. I felt delicious and beautiful, like a painting or a waterfall. Bob continued to look and love my vagina, and Bob lost himself in there. And as he lost himself in there, he pulled me with him, and I was there with him, and we were gone.